Our story today takes place in a land far, far away. Riverton, about 8 miles west of where I'm sitting. Let me go ahead and set the scene for you. So one day there was a meeting. My good friend and business partner, Penny Bivens, tells me about this time that she attended a meeting along with some friends and a cat with a watering bucket.
There was no cat lawn.
All right, fine. No cat. Anyway, one of the attendees for this meeting was the site director. And as you can imagine, the site director's a pretty big cheese and a busy man and no nonsense. So the first thing he asks when he walks in the room is, "Why are we here?" Well, everybody kind of looks around. They're not quite sure. After all, they've always held this meeting. It's a standard meeting. Sure, he hasn't attended before, but nobody really kind of knew how to answer the question of, why are we here? Well, he gets a little exasperated and looks straight at the meeting organizer and says, "Why am I here?" Well, the organizer had no good answer for this. There wasn't really an established agenda and objective for the meeting. And so he started to sweat bullets. And as you can well imagine, everybody else in the room started to feel really anxious and uncomfortable. Well, the site director observed all this, realized that this was just not going to be a good use of his time or anybody else's time, and so he said, "Meeting adjourned," turned around, and left. And of course, the poor guy who organized the meeting, he was feeling pretty awful, and yeah, for good reason. After all, he did not practice good, effective meeting protocol. So let me ask you, the last meeting that you held, would you have been able to answer these questions? Why are we here? Why am I here? Now, if the answer is yes, fantastic. But let's be honest, sometimes the answer would be no. After all, oftentimes we hold meetings just because we've always held them, and they may not have the sort of clarity that is necessary to make them good, strong, effective meetings. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to hold good, solid, collaborative, effective meetings in which work gets done and people feel like it was a good use of their time. So let's take a look at how we do this. Now, there are in fact 4 key elements to making sure that you have a good, strong, effective meeting, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The first one that we'll discuss is preparation. This is done by the meeting organizer. Second is actually conducting the meeting. This is done by a variety of people in the meeting. Third is actually participating in the meeting. This is done by all the attendees. And fourth is everything that needs to be done after the meeting by everyone involved. So with that, let's jump right into it. The first thing that a meeting organizer needs to do is define the purpose and expected outcome of the meeting. If you don't know the purpose or have in mind an expected outcome, don't call a meeting. In fact, your default setting should be don't call a meeting, okay? Do not call a meeting unless you really have a very specific purpose and expected outcome for that meeting. After all, you're about to gobble up a bunch of people's time. You want to make sure that it's well spent. The next thing you need to do is determine who should be there. You really need to make sure that those in attendance need to be there based on the stated purpose and expected outcomes of the meeting. Now, oftentimes we may be tempted to invite people because we want to show off or for political reasons or stakeholder support, things of that nature. Resist that temptation. If they don't need to be there, find another way to maintain communication with them. Next, reserve the room and equipment. I know this sounds basic, but you really want to make sure that you have the right room with the right equipment set up for your meeting. Next, develop an agenda. Now, this one is so important that I want to spend a little bit of time on this. The agenda should include the time allotted for a specific topic, the topic itself in the form of a question, we'll come back to that in a moment, who's going to lead that topic, and the expected outcome of that particular topic. So let me show you an agenda and I'll talk through this. So as you see in this example, each topic has some time assigned to it. Furthermore, the topic is in the form of a question. This helps focus people on why we're talking about the topic. Then you have the person who's going to be facilitating the discussion. And finally, and this is the most important aspect, the expected outcome. Why are we talking about it? What do we need to come away with? If you don't know the expected outcome or are unable to form the topic in the form of a question, then odds are you don't have a really good firm grasp of why you're meeting. So it's a good test to see whether or not a meeting is really necessary. Another thing to think about is the time allotted for the meeting. Now, because of technology and Outlook and so forth, the default time to every meeting on the face of the earth is 1 hour, because Outlook loves putting things in 30-minute, 1 hour, 90-minute increments, things like that. Avoid that. You can set the time however you want to set it. And so figure out how much time is necessary to meet the objectives of the meeting and then set the time accordingly. Do not let technology decide for you that a topic that really could be done in 30 minutes or 34 minutes needs an hour, okay? As you know, the saying is that the amount of work expands to fill the time allotted. So don't allot more time than is actually necessary. Next, distribute the agenda to the attendees 24 hours in advance of the meeting. This will give the attendees the time they need to properly prepare. And finally, inform participants or those who are facilitating specific topics in the meeting if they need to come with any special preparation. All right, now it's time to actually conduct the meeting. First, if you're the meeting organizer, arrive early and test the equipment. Make sure it's running. If I had a nickel for every time somebody spent the first 10 minutes of the meeting actually getting the equipment up and running, I'd be retired in the Bahamas right now. So come early, get it set up. That way you can start on time, which in fact is the second thing. Start on time. If you start late, then that is disrespectful of those who arrived on time and disrespectful of their time itself. Next, review and stick to the agenda. Don't go off topic. And to that point, one thing you can do is assign a weed whacker. A weed whacker is somebody who makes sure that everybody stays on task. And if anyone starts to stray or go off topic or go off and chase tangents or get stuck in the weeds, they can come along and say, hey, okay, I understand what you're talking about, but let's take that offline. We'll table that for another time. We need to stay focused on this topic. Next, if it's really important that everybody understands some material that's going to be discussed in the meeting, provide some time at the beginning of the meeting for them to actually read through the stuff. Now, I know you sent the agenda out early, and so they should have had time to review the material, but let's face it, should doesn't always happen. And so if it's important that they all know what they're talking about, give them 5 or 10 minutes to read the material. Next, assign someone to take minutes. Now, minutes are very, very important, and so I want to dig a little bit deeper into these things. Good minutes should include decisions made, action items that have been assigned, who owns these action items, and when they are going to be done. It's all about accountability. So let me show you an example. In this example, you see that we've documented all of the decisions made. That way we don't come back to these things over and over and over, and we can move on. Next, we have a list of all the action items, and furthermore, who owns those action items, along with dates by which these action items will be completed. This allows us to maintain accountability in the meeting. Next, at the end of the meeting, make sure that you review all the decisions made, all of the action items assigned, and who owns those action items. That way there's kind of this we're all on the same page thing going on at the end. And finally, end on time. In fact, if you can end early, end early. Nobody will be upset. All right, so we have prepared a killer meeting. We are conducting it. Everything's going great. What's next? Well, participation. After all, if the attendees are just sitting on their hands, not participating, we do not have an effective meeting. So let's talk about that. Let's return to our meeting crew again, and let's imagine for a moment that the meeting organizer had in fact actually put together a really good, solid agenda. Well, now it's the responsibility of the meeting participants to actually participate, be engaged, and contribute to this meeting. So what are some of the ways that they can do this? Well, one thing you can do is before the meeting, study up on the agenda topics. You want to know everything about what's going to be discussed so you can come prepared to contribute in a meaningful way. Second, prepare 2 or 3 questions, the answers to which really matter to you. It's kind of like a Where's Waldo exercise. When you're doing the Where's Waldo activity, you have in your mind's eye this vision of Waldo, and you're looking through all this garbage to find that guy. Well, the same thing happens with our ears. If we have in mind questions that we need answers to, then all throughout the meeting, no matter how off the rails it may possibly go, we will be constantly trained on that information that we need to do our jobs more effectively. This also increases our attentiveness throughout the whole meeting. Another thing you can do is really make sure that you ask clarifying questions. A lot of information is going to be disseminated in the meeting, and not all of it is going to be abundantly clear. After all, the meeting organizer or whoever is facilitating that particular section of the meeting may be encumbered by the curse of knowledge, meaning to them it's perfectly clear, but to other people it may not be clear. Now, oftentimes in meetings we're afraid to ask questions because we don't want to betray that maybe we don't get something. We think that we're the only ones that don't understand something or that we should have understood it. But that is not a good meeting practice as a participant. Ask clarifying questions, probe, poke, make sure that the information that's being distributed and disseminated is strong and accurate and actionable. Another thing you can do to make sure you're attentive all throughout the meeting is take notes. Even if you doodle, sometimes it's really helpful to process things mechanically as well as intellectually. And as you take notes, you'll be able to better process the information and access it later on. So, you just had a fantastic meeting. You prepared for it. Everybody conducted it very well. Participants were there, they were on task, decisions were made, action items assigned, everybody's happy. But we're not done. We now need to make sure that everything done in the meeting is now done after the meeting. So what does this mean? Well, first, it means sending out the minutes to all the attendees within 24 hours. That way everybody can be reminded of what was decided, who's going to do what, and by when. You then need to follow up on those with assigned action items. Yes, in the meeting they agreed to do whatever they agreed to do, and it's documented in the minutes, but every once in a while you may need to apply some positive pressure to make sure that things get done. Now, in so doing, you may find that they need help, that they lack the resources, the training, the network, the connections, the time, what have you. It's your job as the organizer to make sure that all the action items agreed to in the meeting get done. So that may mean helping them get the resources they need to be successful. And that's everything that goes into a collaborative, effective workplace meeting. Now, I know this looks like a lot, but trust me, a lot of it is systematic, which is to say, once you get it up and running and it becomes part of your meeting culture, it will pretty much run itself. And so there you are. Go out, have some awesome meetings, get work done, and do something incredible, because that's what this is all about. And with that, thanks for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic day. Hey, thanks for joining me on this journey that I call Nutshell Brainery. Of course, there are many other videos for you to watch should you so choose, so I invite you to peruse the menu, if you will. Also, I have a Patreon account, so if you're interested in supporting this, supporting what I'm trying to do with these materials, I invite you to go off and take a look at my account there. Hey, thanks a lot. We'll see you around.